Jesus Jones, welcome to the Backline.
Thank you very much.
You've been writing some new tracks?
Yes, yeah, very, very slowly. But yeah, there's new stuff. In fact, we're playing a new song tonight while on this tour. And there's actually a fair few tracks in the pipeline as well. So there is some new stuff coming, but it just takes me forever to do it. Partly because of the things going on, and also because I find it very easy to fall into formulae, or my formula, and I don't like to do that. So it means that I get bored of it.
So what do you do to kind of get out of the formula when you just like, okay, I'm doing something, like, man, it's what I always do. What do you do to get out of it?
There's something else. I'm never really sure what it's going to be. That's a very time-consuming process. Just think, okay, I'm going to do something different. Not sure what it is, but it's going to be something different. Or, as I always have done, listen to someone else and rip them off.
Like who?
Well, actually, this time around, it's not really kind of song-based artists. It'd be much more kind of dubstep stuff where you look at the structure of what they do and how quickly things come around. And it's amazingly simple and mathematical when you look at it like that. But yeah, it's more just, or I don't know. I don't tend to listen to kind of songs or artists specifically. It'll be on the radio. It'll be an old piece of music that happens to be on a playlist, and I'll just have an ear on it and be thinking, actually, that's unusual that they would do that there. You'd expect it to be a second chorus, but instead it's this kind of instrumental middle section or something like that.
Yeah, everything that we've sampled, it tends to be about the impact. We don't tend to just sample the sound of a band. It's like, there's that bit in that rap song where all of a sudden the breakbeat comes in and it sounds amazing. That's what you try and replicate. It isn't just a case of, let's pick up a record and make us be like that record.
So with regards to, Jesus Jones have always been, sample-based way back in the beginning. Is it, when you're writing new tracks, is it the same? You're quite sample-based?
No, not at all, no. There are lots of samples in there, but the way sampling is used these days is much more of it's an integral part of the sound. It's not so much. In the old days, it used to be a sample would be a strong feature, and you'd hear that it was a sample. Now, really, you just use samples, to create a piano sound or something, or a texture or something like that.
So you're creating your own sounds, actually.
Yeah, to some extent, yes, but it's more musical. It's less gimmicky, less kind of sound effects on there for the sake of it. It didn't sound ridiculously cliched and awful 30 years ago, but it does now.
So you took several years out. Well, no, when I say out, you weren't really hibernating, waiting, and then you came back a few years ago, and I think the Bull and Gate was a fantastic gig to have played. How did it feel being away and then coming back and playing the last Bull and Gate and having it? Was it really exciting? How did it feel?
Yeah, it was really exciting. It was very special for us as well, because the Bull and Gate was one of those. It was one of the first places on the circuit that gave us a chance. You didn't have to have a deal. You didn't have to be signed or be with an agency or anything to play there in the late '80s. So it was nice to go back and do that again, and it felt pretty similar.
It was really really exciting to go back and think, this is where it all started. And it's a bit sort of corny to say the place is full of ghosts, but it is a little bit. You can see, that's where we used to sell the T-shirts in the corner, and we'd stack our gear up over there, because we were always like the first band on.
Sure.
And it took us a while to headline the place. So it was amazing to be back. It was a scary gig, actually. We had to fly by the seat of our pants. We had no monitors for the entire show.
But that's always the way the Bull and Gate
So it was the same as it ever was.
It was good, I think it was good for bands in those days to have such horrible, brutal, simplistic sound systems, because you actually got to be pretty good. You didn't rely on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it toughened us up.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now, looking back over the almost 30 years you've been doing music, how much has Jesus Jones changed?
Loads. I find it's interesting doing new stuff, and when rehearsing it, you hear there's much more space in what we do now. The old stuff, you're trying to fill the space as much as possible all the time, but there's actually a gap or two now in the writing. As I was saying about the sampling, the way that we use sampling in the old days was as a feature. It stood out. Now it's just part of the kind of texture of the song.
We were constrained by technology in a sense back then, because the sampler had a set memory, and virtually every song we had filled that memory completely. Every single space that we could find was used, and now there'd be no way that we could do that same thing again, because there's technology as far as sampling goes is pretty much limitless. So some of the boundaries that used to constrain us have just been completely wiped away. That's probably the biggest change, I think.
And also, looking back, I mean, there were some questionable fashion choices. Do you go back and go like, no, what was I thinking? Or
it's an easy one for us to answer. It's actually an easy one for you or anyone who watches this to answer. Look at a picture of yourself from 30 years ago and see how good you feel you look then.
Absolutely. No, it's true
for us.
It's
although, to be fair, I was getting the tube today, you see loads of people wearing actually quite similar fashions from the late 80s.
That kind of
it's a bit weird that it's kind of gone back.
It is kind of back, and now we can look at it and go, instead of going, we still look at it and go, oh god.
You're going to regret that song.
Yeah, you're going to regret that. Yeah.
So your musical influences obviously has it changed much? Are you listening to a lot of new stuff coming out, or?
Yeah, I mean, a usual thing ever since the mid-90s. I don't really listen to kind of bands all that much, rock music all that much, but I do listen to dubstep and drum and bass really, and it's mostly dubstep at the moment. So obviously, since that hasn't existed all that long, it's changed very much. That's the thing that kind of excites me. I kind of figure that I don't need to hear too many songs to really need influence from that. I kind of know how a song is going to go. But I do listen to a lot of. Actually, find Spotify's playlist really handy for the whole kind of the New Music Friday one. Is really got to force myself to listen to
Discover
that.
Weekly. Discover Weekly.
That's
Amazing.
Those two. And it's very rare that I actually listen to something. That's really good and kind of make a note of it. But it just gives you an idea of kind of what's going on and how things change.
I've listened to a lot. I think dance music started to be exciting again. I mean, Mike mentioned dubstep, but there's a lot of kind of newer sort of like techno and almost kind of rave influenced things. There's a kind of outfit I listen to a lot called Special Request, and that's fantastic. It's bringing sort of some of the elements and the excitement of sort of great techno and great rave records back again, but it's not bringing it back in a sort of an archaic way. It's not a retro sort of way. When people decide to be a bit like the 60s in the middle of the 90s, when I felt that was really jarring. Today, I mean, it's just. I don't know, there seems to be quite a lot of exciting dance music around, which is great, because, 10 years ago it was rubbish, and now it's great again. So that's what I listen to.
Now, you're playing the Garage on the start of the tour.
Yeah.
How does it feel where you're able to have fans coming back and singing your songs and equally as excited and crazy about it as 10, 15, 20 years ago?
It's pretty gratifying actually that people still want to do that. I love it. I mean, the joke that we make about the audience is exactly the same people, but just a little less hair and a little bit more, weight.
Yeah.
They still come out. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. I mean, I monitor all the kind of, the social media stuff that we've got, and there's so much. There's a guy who's flown in from Dublin to be here tonight. There's people that have come from all over the country, to hang out at the gig here. One of the real things that has changed over the years is the way that the internet has kind of brought us and everybody that still thinks we're any good closer together. So that's really, really cool. It means that I think the thing that has changed now is the fans feel a little bit more, perhaps more part of it than they used to.
Sure.
Which is great, and I'm all for that. I don't mind.
So you mentioned social media. I mean, do you think social media helps bands now? I mean, you talked about the closeness of fans to the bands.
Yes, it helps, but I'll tell you for free that in the past, you have to be everything now. You have to be everything. And in the past, we just had to be a band. In the past, Mike's songs put bums on seats, and he wrote great songs, and he still does, but those songs put people on, brought people to the venues. And all right, you know, but there's radio and there was press and there was newspapers and people to talk about them and TV shows and there's none of that anymore. There's internet things that get shared, and so now, I mean, I have to do so much work to try and publicise gigs to people. It almost feels like I'm every single person that comes to the gig, I brought them down, you know. So it's this kind of weird. In the past, Mike felt all the pressure. I wonder if people are thinking that my songs are better than the last bunch of songs. And now, it's the pressure's on the person doing the Facebook page thinking, God, I hope everybody likes and comments on this thing and comes to the gig that I told them about. So it changes, you know.
So what are the plans now for Jesus Jones for 2016?
Hey, you know, I don't know how many gigs there are on the tour. You're asking the wrong person here.
I'm going to force him to write an album. And he's going to write an album.
That'll be good. Fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I think we should write an album. I think we should write an album, really. I think we should put an album out next year. I think we should start off by putting an EP out and then put an album out. Why not?
If your kids are going to, I mean, you have kids.
Yes.
Right. So how would you feel about them being in a band nowadays or doing music? Would you encourage them?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, both my kids play music. My son's seriously into, he's formed his first band.
Okay.
And he plays guitar. Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing that I caution is that it was actually, looking back, it was quite easy for us to make a living from music. I think it'd be almost impossible for bands. I don't know how bands do it these days. I guess many of them don't. So yeah, I mean, I'd love them to make music. I'd love them to do anything creative, and obviously, you know, music fits that. But I'd just be cautious about them throwing themselves into it the way that I threw myself into it, because I think the potential for me making money, even though it didn't seem that good at the time, was much better than it is for young kids these days.
So having a backup plan is
yeah, that's a real dad thing to say.
make sure you get a degree, be a doctor or something. So, well, thank you very much for talking to the Backline. I hope everything in your 7-date tour goes really, really well. And we look forward to that album that Mike doesn't know is coming out next year. Exactly. So thanks very much for talking to us.